Hello, good morning and welcome to Daily Cognitive Behavioural Tips. I'm Deirdre and today we are looking at, I'm just going to turn this up. Today we are looking at cognitive distortions and in particular all or nothing thinking. So firstly, what are cognitive distortions? So they are unhelpful, sometimes called unhelpful thinking habits, and over time we all generally get into patterns of thinking, often of which some are unhelpful or negative thinking. Things like all or nothing, things like catastrophizing, mind reading are all cognitive distortions or unhelpful thinking patterns. So all or nothing thinking in particular is an unhelpful thinking habit because it's sort of describing it as right or wrong, black or white, all or nothing. So just to give you an example, part of my qualification, part of my training was to have what they called a Vivo, or Viva actually, which was a recorded session with a pretend client. And when I was doing this session, I had practiced so hard. It was so important to me because not having a primary degree, when I was qualifying, I needed to make sure that I qualified with excellence. So it was really, really important, and this recorded video was a huge part of my exam. So I came out of the exam and I had that all or nothing. I've absolutely messed this up. I've got it all wrong. I'm never going to get through this. This is the awful. So we had to go to a room to await our feedback, and I just fell apart. I was absolutely so tearful, and it was just a really, really awful time. So that was my all or nothing thinking. There was nothing good about what I'd done. All of the preparation that I had done had gone. There was nothing to be, it was going to be absolutely dreadful. And that is all or nothing thinking. So what do we do about our all or nothing thinking? Well, I have 4 steps for you. So how do we manage all or nothing thinking? So the first step is to notice the automatic patterns of thought. And we often talk about with clients thinking slower. So slowing things down and noticing what's happened, noticing are there any patterns? Am I doing this all or nothing thing? And then the second is to learn to settle our inner chimp. And I've spoken about Steve Peters and his work with the different parts of the brain and how the chimp brain, the emotional part of our brain, is jumping up and down and it's trying to protect us. So it's sort of, how do we deal with that? It's kind of noticing what's happening, and from there we replace and reframe our thoughts. So it's looking at replacing it with a more helpful thought. So something like, yes, I am nervous, but if I don't do this, I won't get a chance to succeed. And then the last step is what I'm thinking 100% true 100% of the time? So is it all or nothing, or is there a shade of grey in that black or white thinking? And I guess finally there's a 5th step, which is to get support, is to work with somebody to recognise what strategies might help with this. So obviously the tips that we're giving here, that I'm sharing with you in the morning, is not a replacement for therapy. And it can be useful to, if you feel that there are areas that you are struggling with, is to get support from a qualified therapist or a counsellor who could help to work through these techniques and these skills. Just finally going back to the Viva and the interview, it was okay. It was great. In fact, it was excellence. There were parts that I had ignored. There were parts that I didn't see that were successful, that it wasn't as awful as I thought at the time. So that's the technique of looking at our all or nothing thinking. I will put the handout for the 4 C's, which is a useful way of looking at our thoughts, looking at whether or not they're correct, looking at challenging them, checking them, and coming up with a more helpful way of thinking. Thank you for listening to me today, and I hope that's helpful, and I will speak to you tomorrow. Bye for now.